this issue in the forefront. As you know, year to year, 365 days a year, 24/7, because we want to keep the issue in the forefront as much as possible. We do not want the issue to show up when a celebrity is being affected by it or when an athlete is being profiled for it in the news. And so tonight, I have a different type of guest that we're popping up with. Her name is Laurie Shiell, and she is from Bermuda in the Caribbean. And she is the executive director of the Center for Abuse there. And so I wanted to bring Laurie on tonight because a lot of the times when we think about domestic violence, we do not think about it in some of the most beautiful places. You do not think that it exists on an island where you're only seeing the beauty when you visit as a tourist, right? You do not understand that the backdrops of each place, no matter where you go, has its disturbing, ugly parts. And in this case, it's domestic violence where it's happening everywhere. So I want to introduce Laurie. Laurie, I am bringing you here tonight because you and I have had a conversation. We vibed off of this issue and we talk so much about, the synergies about domestic violence in the Caribbean versus here in the States. And so I'd like for you to talk about why you joined the Center for Abuse, why this work is important, and what are some of the services that you offer there.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Laverne. It's such a pleasure to be here with you and
Same.
your audience. So, Center Against Abuse. Let me just correct that. Not for, but against.
Against, yes, yes. I read it that way and said it the other way. Go ahead.
So, as you said, we are in Bermuda and we provide services to survivors of domestic abuse and sexual assault here
Yeah.
on the island. And what we do basically is we give those people hope. We give them a way out, we give them healing, and we assist with their journey. We
Amen.
provide services that include counseling, safe housing, court advocacy assistance. We also assist them with moving forward beyond the abuse and into a new, healthy, safe, financially stable life. We
Mm-hmm,
provide
mm-hmm.
them with those tools because, as you know, many people do stay because financially they just can't afford to leave.
Yes,
And
yes.
so we try to surround them with the support that they need in order to move forward alone. Um, and as you said, yeah, here we are on 21 square miles of beauty. You know, Bermuda's known for
Yeah.
being one of the most beautiful islands that you could visit. And, we're also one of the most wealthiest places on the earth. And
Yeah.
guess what? 1 in 3 women here on our island will experience some form of domestic abuse during their lifetime. And so that is the ugly secret that is um, simmering below our volcano,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And because we're such a small island, right now we're around 60,000 people. So that will include residents, so Bermudians and non Bermudians who live here as residents. And because it's small, we like to keep secrets. We don't
Mm-hmm.
want we don't want our neighbor knowing our business. Although our neighbor hears our business, so our neighbor knows our business.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want our cousin knowing our business. And so we keep that secret. We teach our children to keep the secret. So a lot is swept under the carpet here. Um,
Mm-hmm.
even to say that you would be going to a location such as Center Against Abuse to our office. People don't want to be seen coming to our office. So we are set up in a way that it provides safety for our clients. And so there's
Mm-hmm.
no signage for our services where we are. You won't find our address anywhere. You'll
Mm-hmm.
find a PO box for us. And that's to maintain the safety and the confidentiality of our clients and the
Yep.
safety of us as well.
Yeah.
And so those are the things that we deal with here on a small island where people may come in, they may say, well, I don't want anybody knowing my business. I'm like, well, what our role here is to keep
Is
you
to,
safe.
yeah.
And so We can't keep you safe if we're using your information as gossip with
Yep.
our friends and family. So when they
Yeah.
come in to our services, part of our intake is a confidentiality policy that they sign that says, X, Y, and Z in reference to confidentiality. And it also talks about the times when we will breach confidentiality. So we will breach confidentiality if you're going to harm yourself, if
Yeah.
you're going to harm another, or
Mm-hmm.
if the courts make the request for us to breach it.
Mm-hmm.
And so we get them to understand that and sign that. And we've seen, since we've had that in place, we've seen people be more confident and more willing to come forward and relax and actually tell their story and
Mm-hmm.
obtain the services that we have for them. Now, the other thing is that because it's small, of course, now I see people that I don't know on the street, and so I'll say to clients, look, if I see you on the street, I didn't know you before this. Don't take it
And
personal that I don't
I
speak to
still
you.
don't know you.
I
Yeah.
still don't know
Yeah.
you because that's
Yeah.
pride. That's all part of me keeping you safe.
Mm-hmm.
Wherein I don't want somebody saying, "Oh, well, how you know her?" And then
Right.
you're
The
fumbling over your word.
association. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So those are the things that we have to do on a small island in order to maintain the safety for our clients.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, what we've seen in the recent years is that we used to actually have a safe house proper,
Mm-hmm.
a facility, a safe house facility. And we have seen over the years that people are have now shied away from that and have moved more into, you know what? I want to stay in my own home.
Yeah.
Put the abuser out. So the request for protection orders has increased,
Wow.
whereas the request for being safe housed has decreased. Now, we did
Mm-hmm.
see a major increase in the desire for safe housing last year when we first
Mm-hmm.
went on lockdown.
Mm-hmm.
And I
And so
think,
I don't want to reach there yet. We'll
okay,
get to that. But
okay,
what I want to touch on, and so you talked a lot about the safety of clients and making sure that their identities are kept safe. I want to sort of go back a little bit and
okay.
ask you what brought you to this work? What made you want to help people that were
Yeah,
seeking safety from
yeah.
abuse?
So I'm going to go way back,
Mm-hmm.
as far back as maybe 4 or 5 years old. I can remember my granny sitting myself and my sister down and telling us her story and
Mm-hmm.
telling us how when she was young, her father beat her mother. She didn't call it
Mm.
abuse. So she
Yeah.
said, my dad beat my mom when I was a young child living with them. She said he beat her every night. He would come home drunk and beat her, and then he'll beat me and my siblings. And she was the
Mm-hmm.
youngest of four.
Mm.
And then she talks about how he was an alcoholic. And she would say, you don't want to marry a man like that. She said, look at me. I chose not to marry a man like my father. And she
Yeah.
did. She married the man of her dreams who was like, I tell people it's Jesus and then it's my grandfather.
I love it. I love it. I love the separation. He's real close to Jesus. I love that.
Yeah, because he adored her and he
Yeah.
loved her like a male should love a female.
Amen.
And she provided the example for what a relationship, a good, healthy relationship looks like.
And that
And
is right there, right there. I'm going to stop you right there because a lot of the times, and so we often talk about how adults in our lives shape our ideas around what healthy relationships are going to be
yeah,
for us in the long run. And
yeah,
here you are, which is often not the norm, right? You often hear that when children are in abusive homes, I am no exception, they go on to become victims or abusers
yeah,
themselves. But
yeah,
here is your grandmother that said, I am going to go completely opposite of that. And I want someone who is not going to treat me the way my father
yeah,
treated
yeah.
us as kids. So I love that.
Yeah, so when she was 16, her mother died. And
Mm,
so she tells the story of how her father gave her a one-way ticket to her sister because she was the youngest out of all of them. So her two older brothers and her sister had left the home by that point in time. So she
mhm.
received a one-way ticket to her sister and she saw the lives of her siblings. And she decided at that point, no, no man will ever put his hands on me
Yeah,
again. I had
yeah.
enough looks from my father. I will never have that again in my life.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, her other siblings didn't choose that route.
Yeah.
Her other siblings ended up being alcoholics.
Mhm.
And the irony or the cycle of it all is that one of her brothers was in a very abusive relationship with his girlfriend. They were both alcoholics. And my granny says, they will fight each other, fight like cats and dogs, as we
Yep.
say.
Yep.
Um, and he gave it to her and she gave it to him.
Yeah.
And one day, I guess she had had enough.
Mhm.
And she stabbed him 118 times
Whew.
and killed him. And
Wow.
she was the last female hung in Bermuda, and that was in the early 1900s. I think it was like 1930s.
Yeah.
He
Wow.
was hung. So if he had made a decision to stop that cycle,
Mhm.
that could have gone totally different.
Yeah, for sure.
Mhm. And so I think that also assisted my grandmother with like, you know what? I'm going to make sure that, no,
This
not
never
for my.
happens.
And even before he died, they couldn't come to my grandmother's house, her siblings. Not that they couldn't come. She told them, she said, if you're not sober, you cannot come to my house.
Yeah. Sober up or don't come at all. Yeah.
Sober up or don't, because I'm not going to have yet that behavior at my home.
Right. Yeah.
And
Good for
so they
her.
they never came. They
Hmm.
never came. And so she set a standard for
Hmm.
herself and for
For
her family.
and for her family. Yeah. So you guys
Because
had really great examples, and so I from that, right? You grew, you knew what was healthy versus unhealthy, and this drew you to the work that you do now,
yes,
as
exactly.
executive director of the Center Against Abuse. I love that. And so, um, in the work, right, from beginning the time that you started to now, what changes have you seen, or what progresses have you seen around the issue of abuse on the island of Bermuda?
Yeah, like I said, when I first started, it was very taboo, I would say. It was just
Mm-hmm.
kind of starting to open up. Whereas now we're finding more and more people are coming to our services. So we I would say clientele has doubled easily since
Mm-hmm.
from when I first started.
Yeah.
And that's because of the education, I want to say. Not that, more people are being abused, because when you read their stories, it's not like they just started being abused. They've
Right.
been they've been in this situation for quite some time, but they're
Yeah.
coming forward now. We work quite closely with the police. So if you go to the police station and you have a domestic, or the police show up your house to a domestic, more than likely they will give you our information and say, you know what, you need to go see these people.
Yeah. So the awareness is a little bit more
Definitely.
accessible, a little bit of more education around the issue as a whole, which I love, right?
Hmm.
There was, and that's so critical, especially when and so a lot of the time, um, people end up and at police stations or hospitals, and that's the first time that they're learning that domestic violence agencies are a thing.
Yes.
DV shelters are a thing. Those things, that
Hmm.
type of help does exist. And so I'm humbled by the fact that you guys work so closely with them to be able, so that they could give that information to folks. But I'm also saddened, right? Because a lot of the times it's because people are only now hearing about
Yeah.
DV agencies when they end up in those types of situations. And I can say succinctly for myself that when I ended up in the hospital after my last attack, it was because I was being told that I could get help, and that word help was very daunting, and I didn't want anything to do with it. But thankfully, for the island being so small, a lot of people have been reaching out, and I'm so thankful for that, because without that help, people don't know what to do next. They end up
Mhm.
going back. They end up homeless. They end up, getting hurt, and all of that good stuff. So Antonio Arundel is one of the Love Life Now board members. He said that that Bermudan accent reminds me of my mentor, big sister Roxanne Christopher. Thanks for
Yes, I know
joining.
Roxanne.
Shut up! Look at that! I love that. Oh my goodness.
Definitely. Yes, I know Roxanne.
Oh, that is awesome. Antonio is the only male on our board, and we love
Ah,
him dearly.
tell him I'll reach out to Roxanne and let him know. Let her
I
know.
love that. I love that. I love that. And
Yes.
so we appreciate you joining, Antonio. But yeah, I mean, so why don't we now fast forward to, you said in the past years that the clientele has doubled, about about the amount of people that are coming to seek
Mhm.
services. But why don't you talk about what types of services you guys offer?
Yeah, so we provide counseling, which is like one of our most busiest services. Whereas years ago it wasn't busy, and now we have had to add on, I think this year alone, we put on two more part-time counselors because on-call counselors, I should say, because the need for the services has definitely increased. Um, we have a safe housing program. So, what our program looks like in Bermuda is that we utilize Airbnbs
Oh,
um,
wow.
for safe housing, and we found that
Mm-hmm.
that model is definitely working for us. Number one, we don't have to pay for a full-time house
Right.
and
Yeah.
all the costs that are associated with running a house full time 24/7. We only pay for
Mm-hmm.
the home for like 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
And the program is a 2-month program whereby we work with you to move you to that next stage.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This includes you obtaining a protection order because that protection order protects yourself as well as it protects the property where you're at, although the
Where you're
property
going.
isn't listed. And we try to place the client in an area on the island where they feel that they have the most support, whether it's from family or friend. We try to place them close to somebody that they feel supported by and they feel comfortable with as well,
Yeah.
um, which has been great for them. And then we work with, if they're not working, we work with finance, have them work with financial assistance here on the island, where they are then assisted with this is how much rent that we'll pay going forward. And so that's how we transition them into their
Their
next
own.
segment. Yes,
Yeah.
into their own space. We put them and marry them with a few realtors, and so the realtors then assist them with finding a rental space that is within their budget and move
Affordable.
them
Yeah.
forward. And then, yep, and then we also assist them with some secondhand furniture for what their needs are. So,
Yeah.
yeah, we try
Wow.
to move them forward until they say, okay, we don't need your help anymore. Thank you very much.
Wow. That's
But
amazing.
I can say last year during the pandemic, we were greatly supported by a number of donors here on island for our safe housing program.
Mm-hmm.
And it was beneficial, not just for locals, but what I didn't consider when I actually put the program, because I put the program together like in a night when donors were like, look, how can we help you? And I
Mm-hmm.
kind of just, brainstorm and wrote this program for this safe housing with the Airbnb that I had been thinking about for some time, but then I had to just
Mm-hmm.
put pen to paper.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't consider that our borders would be closed and non-Bermudians would be stuck here.
Oh, wow. So the Airbnb
So we,
situation.
so we had a number of Bermudians, non-Bermudians, I would say we had 3 people staying in our safe housing program who stayed beyond the 2 months because they were non-Bermudians. They were trying to leave the island, but because we were on lockdown, they could not leave the island. And then when our space was opened up, where they were going was still on lockdown. So they still could not leave, our space.
Yeah.
And so we had to assist them straight through, for,
The whole
a
time.
longer period of time.
Yeah.
So yeah, so we provide that service, and then we provide the court advocacy, as I spoke to about earlier. So that is with our assisting individuals with obtaining protection orders. So protection orders on the island are basically for 12 months,
Hmm.
and or summary offense letter. Summary offense letters is like when they haven't reached the level of where they're violent with me, but they're harassing me, they're stalking me.
Okay. Yeah.
um, we will assist them with that. Then, like I spoke of earlier, we may assist them as well with liaising with other services. So I speak regularly with the domestic violence liaison officer, and she will say, Laurie, have you heard from this person? Have you heard from this? Is what I see on our police blotter. Has this person contacted you? And so she will follow up with individuals that she's seen that the police have been to their house or have been in contact with the police in some way, shape, or form to say, try to get some background and then try to encourage them to make contact with us. Um, we also go out into schools and into the community, into businesses, and we do trainings. We try to teach individuals how to recognize abuse, how to respond to it, how to refer. We call it the 3 R's: recognize, respond, and refer. So we
Hmm.
do a lot of that training, and we've had an opportunity over the last 10 years to train thousands on island, from seniors right down to primary school individuals. We run a 24-hour hotline for anyone that wishes to call, should you need to call for
Looking for
some
help.
assistance. Yep, looking
Hmm.
for help, just
Hmm. Hmm.
trying to figure out what to do, and it's beyond the 9 to 5 hours. And
Hmm.
so that is manned by on the weekend by volunteers that we train up to answer those calls. And then we're also part of the sexual assault response team here on the island. That team is made up of the sexual assault nurse examiners. So we have
Yeah.
three of those on the island. Also, the vulnerable persons unit of the police service,
Hmm.
as well as the Department of Child and Family Services. So when a when a sexual assault is reported within 5 days of the sexual assault, we respond to the hospital if that person is over the age 18 to assist them with understanding their um,
Options are.
what what their options are, what their
Yeah.
rights are,
Yep.
because the police are there, and some of them like, well, I don't want to speak to the police, I'm not ready, and I tell them, okay, you don't have to,
You don't
you
have
know,
to. Yeah.
or
Yeah.
then most of them I encourage, what, you can tell your story now to the police. If you're not ready to tell the person's name, you don't have to. Just give them your story. That way it's out of your system,
Yeah.
and it's just a statement. You say, I'm not ready to press charges. I just want this to be recorded as
Hmm.
information.
Yes.
And when you're ready, that information is there for you, because the police are there to keep the evidence. They are the
Yep.
keepers of the evidence. And so the sexual assault kit that the nurse examiner does on you, the police keep it safe. On island, we have a no limitations when it comes to making a report for a sexual assault. So
Hmm.
no statutes of limitations. So
That's
could have
great.
happened 20 years ago. You can come
You come
forward now.
forward. Yeah.
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 And
Yeah.
so we have that conversation with them, and then offer
That's
our services of counseling for them as well.
that's fantastic. And anything additional you want to add in terms of services? I have a question from a viewer.
Yeah, and that's it for now. Yeah.
Okay. So Samantha wants to know, what do you do with people that have children? And so are they allowed to stay in the
hmm
Airbnbs? How
hmm
many
Yes,
accommodate? I
that's
want to
correct.
add to that. Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the the good thing about the model of the Airbnb is that yes, your children come with you. That's a must,
Mm-hmm.
because
Okay.
we cannot leave them with the abuser.
Mm-hmm.
As well as, what if a male is being abused, and he
Mm.
so then he gets to come as the victim with the kids
Ah.
to our safe housing model. because
Mm-hmm.
before, when we just had the shelter proper, only females,
Yep.
as well as we wouldn't take male children over the age of 16 if we
Yep.
had younger, like younger girls around 14, 15, 16 in the house because, hey, we don't want anybody's child pop up pregnant at the safe house.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
And so,
we had to
go ahead.
also look out for, that as well with when you
Mm-hmm.
have a shelter as one location. So now with the Airbnb, we don't have to concern ourselves with, okay, well, how old is this person? How old is this child? Or, oh, you're a male, but you're being abused, so we don't have anywhere for you.
Yeah.
Now we can assist everyone who is a victim of domestic abuse.
Regardless of gender. And that typically tends to
Exactly.
be the problem, whether you're in Bermuda or the United States. A lot of the times, if you are a male victim, you're not
Mhm.
able to go to a shelter because
Mhm.
they only accept women.
Yep.
And it leaves males who are experiencing this issue in a very tight spot. And because, in fairness, 1 in every 7 men in the United States alone will be affected by this issue,
Yeah.
and those are the reported numbers, right?
Hmm.
We can't tell how many are unreported, but it's the same in Bermuda, the beautiful island of Bermuda.
Yep.
It's the same deal. So this Airbnb model, I think, is great because again, there's no limitation on how many children a parent has; they can come with them. I guess my only question to that model makeup is, and then we're going to go to Antonio's question that I
Okay.
think you kind of answered already. What are you doing? What are you doing with men? And I think you answered that in part just now.
Yeah,
And
the exact
so,
same thing we do with women.
yeah, the same exact thing, which is
Mhm.
fantastic. And so, again, because you have this Airbnb model, my question with that model is, um, you mentioned that you place or you try to place survivors in an area where they might have support. The question comes up for me, and I don't know for anybody else, is what it isn't the abuser in that same community and would, typically might want to follow the family members to where they're going to visit this person or follow the victim from the home to where they're going.
So, once you go into safe housing, the space that you are in is a private space.
Mm-hmm.
No one can come there. So that's part of the agreement that you sign.
Okay.
Only, I might say, okay, we've had people that have had newborns, and I'll say, okay, who's your closest, most trusted person to come here? And only that person can come there. Um, and they recognize that this is not housing, this is a safe space, so you can't
Yeah.
be having parties, you can't be having all your friends come over. It's not that type of space because
Yeah.
those behaviors can get you put out.
Mm-hmm.
And so, um, we have a very tight contract with the
Mm-hmm.
individual, and it outlines there's going to be no smoking, there's going to be no drinking. I
Mm-hmm.
can pop up whenever I want
Right.
because technically I'm your landlord.
Right. Right.
And
Right.
I'm your landlord, but I don't have to give you 24-hour notice that I'm coming.
Right. 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 Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So we
Yeah.
want to ensure that, we're not being duped by anyone. And we tell them, we have the police that's going to come patrol. Certain police officers know where you are, so they will patrol as well. Um, and so that assists with the safety. So we'll say, no, your best friend can't know where you are because
Right.
sometimes you can't trust your best friend because your best friend may be still talking to your
To
abuser, or mom may be still talking to your abuser. So we have that conversation to determine who has a relationship with this person. Those individuals, you're probably not going to want to let them know where you are.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Okay.
that's how we try and maintain
That
that
privacy.
safety. Yes, yes. So
Mm-hmm.
while they're close, it's not where people's walking in and out the house or they're walking over to somebody's house. It's
Mm-hmm.
just that if they need something, they can meet somebody somewhere real
Somewhere
quick.
else. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just not here. Anywhere else but here. You don't
Exactly.
have to go home, but you can't stay here.
Yeah, so it seemed like, like I said, the people who that we do allow there, we kind of vet them as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that's fantastic. And so, thank you for that question and answer. And so, what I'd like to know now is what are some of the stressors that you find when victims enter into the homes? Well, before, when they had you guys had the one standalone shelter, what were some of the things that you found that victims were dealing with when they first come to the house, in terms of their mindset, in terms of what they were thinking was going to happen once they entered, and versus what happens when they're there? What are some of the things that happens? Like, I guess I'd like you to me to help put those that are listening in the minds of victims when they just escape and they end up at the shelter.
yeah. Of course, they go through a period where they want to go back.
Mm-hmm.
Did I do the right thing? I'm not sure if I did the right thing. I probably should go back. It's going to be mad. Um, they're very concerned and stressed about that. They're
Mm-hmm.
concerned about, am I doing the right thing for my children? They're not
Mm-hmm.
going to have a father. And so we have to say to him, well, he's not dead. He's quite alive. He, you- you're just not going to be in a space anymore where the two of you are, where it's going to be unhealthy for your kids.
For the kids,
And you have
yeah.
to look at it as you're placing them in a safe, healthy environment and teaching them healthy relationships. And this way they get the best of mom and they get the best of dad, but in
Mm-hmm.
separate spaces.
Yeah.
Um, Another thing that they're concerned about is the Department of Child and Family Services is going to take away my kids
Mm-hmm.
because I've had them in this abusive situation. Because those are some of the things that the abuser tells them, oh, I'm going to have your kids taken away, oh, you're a bad mom, you're this, you're that. And so
That was
they
the
have this
threat.
in their mind that, oh, he's going to go for full custody. And I'm like, how often he had your kids when you were home? If he's not the dad of the year, he's not going for full custody. He's
Right.
just using that as a tool to control
To
you,
control you.
to
Yeah.
maintain that thumb on you and keep you in fear of him and keep that power imbalance going. And
Mm-hmm.
so we have to have those conversations. The other thing is most clients don't trust us.
Mm-hmm.
They don't
When
trust
they
us
first
because
come.
when they first come, okay, because they've been taught by the abuser not to trust.
Yes. The
And
isolation.
the isolation and all of that. And so they want to know, okay, what's the end game here?
Mm.
you know,
Wow.
um, what's really going on here? You set me up for a letdown. And so it
Mm-hmm.
takes a while sometimes for some people to trust us. I can
Yeah.
remember one client that we had, this was years ago when I first started, and oh my gosh, she didn't trust us coming or going. She was just like, she turned her nose up to us. Um, and she just did not trust us as all. She left us. She moved into her own place.
Mm-hmm.
And, we just kept following up with her regularly and just saying, just calling to check on you. And she's like, oh, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
fine. I'm fine.
Right.
And then one day I called her and I said, look, I have all these groceries I've been given. And, I just called you to see if you need some groceries. And she said, Miss Shield, my goodness, your answer to prayers. I just moved into a new place. And I literally was sitting here trying to decide, what am I going to give
What
my
am I
kids
gonna
for
eat?
dinner?
Yeah.
What am I
Wow.
going to eat? And so I went to her new place, took her groceries, and she literally, it was just like boxes were dumped in the home. Like everything was just topsy-turvy. And I could see in her eyes, she looked at me and it was like, I want to cry, but I'm not that person. And
I
after
love
that,
that.
I saw a change in her where men
Yeah.
told her she was just more open. She was, she would share more and things like that. And we saw that she knew at that point, you know what? they don't want anything from me. They're just here to assist me in whatever way they can.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And for so long, like you said, they've been told that any help, anybody else does not, they're not going to love you like I love
Yep.
you, or you're
Yep.
worth nothing.
Yep.
Nobody wants to help you. And that this level of distrust builds up so high,
Yep.
that, you cocoon, as an
Yep.
individual, when I
Yep.
first left, I did not end up in a shelter. I did not want any of that help, but in my mind, I did not trust people. I didn't even trust
Yeah.
myself, God.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
I had spent
exactly.
almost 2 years being demeaned and told that I was not going to be loved by anybody else, that nobody else was going to love me. And so
Hmm.
uh, even going to the grocery store was a chore, right? Because I
Yeah,
had
because
to
now you were being forced to make your own decisions, whereas
own
all of that had been taken
decisions.
away from you. And you were like, okay, well, what do I do? What do I get? How do I, and it was like, am I doing the right thing? Because you've been told that
People,
you can't
I
make a
don't
decision.
I don't want to look people in the eye,
Yeah.
especially guys, because I'm inviting unwanted attention
Hmm.
without what I was told for a very long
Hmm.
time. So I understand that, and I guess I wanted you to just sort of add to that because again, when people leave, a lot of people think it's this black and white thing. When you leave and you're done with the abuse, that's it, and that's certainly not it. You have to get yourself up from under this big rock that's been over you for so long. And there's so many layers that go with that. And when you
Hmm.
end up in a shelter space, that's a whole other piece. And like you said, they often want to go back because again, they're like, oh my God, okay, I'm used to chaos and this is
And,
like
hmm.
outside my norm.
Yeah.
Where's the level of chaos happening?
Yeah. Chaos is my comfort blanket because that's all I
Yes,
know,
that's
and
all
so
I
now I'm
know.
free. I don't feel free. This free is
Yeah.
like prison because it's not comfortable for me.
No.
I'm not used to making my own decision. And you'll
Yeah.
find that people ask, well, what will you do? And I'm like, no, it's
Mm-hmm.
not about what I do. What do you
Mm-hmm.
wish to do?
Yeah.
These are decisions you have to make. I've given you the
Yes.
information, and now you have to decide.
Empowered.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you have to decide what you want to do now. And you don't, and I tell people, today is not, if you don't feel like making the decision today, then say, I don't know what decision to make today. I say, guess what? That is a
Yeah.
decision. That's
Right.
your first decision,
Right.
that
I
you're not
love it.
ready to make a decision.
Yep. Yep. And so oftentimes we say to folks that you should be empowering survivors when it's their time, that you're not trying to push them to do things that they're not
Hmm.
ready to do,
Hmm.
because everybody's timetable doesn't look the same.
Exactly.
And at the core of it, like you said, you want to put the power back into their hands because it's been taken away from them.
Right.
So I applaud the work that you guys do. We have
Yeah.
about 7 more minutes left, and in this
Mhm.
time, I'd like for you to talk about um, when folks enter the space, what sort of caveats are in place for them. So, do they receive new bedding? Do they receive, grocery things to start them off?
Right. So when they move to their next space, their new home, yes, so we will inquire with them, what do you need? And then we try to source those things for them free. We work with a department here on the island called the Bermuda Housing Corporation. It's a government organization, and they provide housing to a number of individuals on island. So they have quite a bit of furniture and different things that they store, and so we work with them to obtain the furniture, and they give it to us free. They even will move it to the new space for the person. And so we just really try to work with them. And like you said, we try to get that give them a grocery voucher so that they have groceries. The furniture, getting pots and pans is expensive, and so we try to even get those for them from the Bermuda Housing Corporation here on island. And it has worked really well for our clients that have moved into the new home. But what we've also found is that family help a lot too, and provide them with a great deal
Yeah.
of items as well. So yeah, so far it has been working. We haven't had to tweak it as yet. And there have
Mhm.
been individuals that had decided, well, I'm not going to contact financial assistance. Let me just try to see if I can stay beyond 3 months, beyond 2 months, because I'm not going to follow this rule. And they found themselves homeless,
Stuck.
basically.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Because I was like, because I'm not one to just give you the contract. I'll follow up with you and say, okay, well, did you call financial assistance? Have you called? Have you done this? Have you done this? Have you done? Okay, you have this much time left. You haven't done it.
Hmm.
Okay.
Hmm.
So,
So
and
you're staying on them as much as possible, but
as
again, at the end of this all, it is
it,
upon
yeah,
them to
them,
make the moves, next
yeah,
steps,
yeah.
and that's
We're giving
critically
you the tools,
important.
but I can't put my hand on your hand and make you right with the pen.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're providing the resource, but it's up to
Yeah.
Vic. And I think a lot of people don't understand that. They think,
Hmm.
well, let's just go in and, make an intervention and,
Yeah.
just drag them out from where they are. And, because we know what's best. And then you
Hmm.
find, like you said, they go back because they did not make that decision. They weren't ready,
Hmm.
yet they didn't get to their breaking point. And I think that's where people, victims and survivors, have to be to want that change, is that they've had enough, that this is it, I'm over it, right?
Yeah.
And get to that point, you find that, right, that it's not that hard for them to pick up the phone to call financial assistance because they really
Yeah.
want to leave at this point. It's not anybody forcing them or telling them what to do. It's like, I'm over this and I'm ready to move on. So I am just so thankful for the work that you guys do.
Thank you.
And
Yeah,
one of the Go ahead.
and with that, we recognize that sometimes people do go back. And so we may
Mm-hmm.
say to individuals, if you ever need us, we're here for you no matter what. We're here for you. We want you. We know that people slip up. We know that people
Mm-hmm.
sometimes go back. And so we don't want to you to feel some way. We don't want you to feel shame in reaching out to us for our services again. We're not here to shame you. Our duty, our job is to keep you safe. So when you call and
Yes.
say, look, I went back, I did this, I did that. We're not here to say, well, what? We gave you all of this, A,
Why?
B, C, and D. We say,
Yeah.
okay, what are you ready to do at this point?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we move from there.
Yeah. What are the next steps? I'm putting
Yeah,
again the power back in your
yeah,
hands. And
yeah.
if nothing that you take away from this live tonight is that, from the agency, domestic violence agency that you contact, to being a support, a sister, a mother, a brother, it's all about putting the power back into the victim's
Yeah,
hands, and
yeah,
realizing that as much as you want them to do a thing, they're not ready to do that thing
yeah.
just yet. It has to be on their timetable. And so, Laurie, I just want to thank you for being with us tonight. You gave us such amazing gems. And in talking to you, I realized that the synergies between what's offered here in the US are very, very much the same. You
Hmm.
do have that Airbnb model, which I love that.
Hmm.
And it is everywhere. It's not just one standalone
Yeah,
shelter, so that folks
yeah,
are able to be placed closer to where support is. Because a lot of the times, with the standalone shelter, it's because if there is no room at a shelter
yeah,
in that area, folks are having to go to very far out places where they have no one. And I've heard that from so many people over the years, that they went to, they had to be out, let's say
yeah,
Boston, they live in Boston, but they had to go to Framingham. And
yeah.
that's like, that's in, where I live, that's like a good hour and change,
Exactly.
where
Yeah,
they don't have
yeah.
money to go visit anybody or any of that stuff. So like I said, I love that model. And I think it's fantastic. And then all the other services, the legal advocacy that you touched on, that you offer,
Mm-hmm.
the court advocacy with help, with a restraining order,
Mm-hmm.
the counseling, which
Mm-hmm.
counts for so much when you've just left, that to unwrap yourself from that stuff that you've been
Mm-hmm.
taught over this time period of
Yeah,
time. And then shelter, and and the fact that men can stay there too, men can utilize shelter too, because they experience
exactly.
abuse as well. As and they can come with their children, men or women. So I want to thank you again. if you can again give the information for the Center Against Abuse, I got it right this time. Um, give the information for the Center Against Abuse. I'm going to put it in the chat, but I'd like for you to just tell people where they can find you guys on Facebook, as well as the website and or phone number.
So you can find us on Facebook at Center Against Abuse. We also have an Instagram page, Center Against Abuse. Our website is www.centeragainst.abuse.bn. And then our telephone number is 441-292-4366. Or our 24-hour hotline is 441-297-8278. It has been such a pleasure speaking with you this evening, Laverne.
Oh, I'm so
Anytime
happy.
we talk, I just feel like I'm talking to an old friend.
Oh, I love that. I love that. That's the hope, right?
Yes,
Samantha
exactly.
says, thank you so much for the info. I know Antonio joined as well. And then, so this video is going to be up. I'm going to share it on our Instagram and our
Thank
Facebook
you.
tomorrow, God's willing.
Thank you.
And yes, the very same here. I feel like I'm talking to an old friend as well. And now you all have friends in Bermuda
Yes,
for the
exactly.
Center Against Abuse. And now you can easily say, God forbid, you have someone that may be in that part of the world
Yeah.
that needs help. You know where to point them, right? The
Mhm,
idea is
mhm.
to be acclimated with all the resources that are available to folks, because you never know who is experiencing this issue and where. And
Mhm.
again, domestic violence is everywhere, even
Yeah.
on a beautiful island like Bermuda. So
And,
again,
and
go ahead.
and so we do also, if we do have close ties with the other British overseas territories, because Bermuda is a British overseas territory. So we have
Mm-hmm.
close ties with Cayman and their
Okay.
crisis center there, Turks and Caicos, Anguilla, Montserrat, and BVI. We have close ties with those islands. So even if you know someone that may be in those islands and may need assistance and you don't know, but you know my name, you know my email, or
Yeah.
my messenger, you can send us a message through Center Against Abuse, and we will try to work, to assist that person with the services that are on those islands.
Yeah, that's thank you for pointing that out, because sometimes it's because somebody doesn't want to reach out because they don't, even though they know a phone number, they don't know what to expect. They might
Yeah.
have seen you on this live and be able to make a connection that way. I honeymooned in Turks and Caicos, and
Oh, wow.
now I know, I didn't know then, what DV agency was available. Let's say I'm on
Yes,
vacation
exactly.
and I see something happening, in the room next to me, or I hear
Yeah.
something. Who do I call, right? Well,
Oh,
who do
yep.
I read? You don't know, right? And so now, this was back in 2012 when I honeymooned there, but now I tell people all the time, it doesn't matter where you are. You can be on a cruise, you can be on an island on vacation. There really is no excuse for you not to be part of the solution, because domestic violence is everyone's business, right?
Everywhere. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, find out what the one of the first things that I do, no matter where I am, is I find out what the emergency number is. So we know in the States it's
Yeah.
911, right? What is the emergency number here in, Brazil or Bali or
Yeah.
any one of those places?
Mhm,
Who
mhm.
do I call if something's happening, right? That's one of the things. So please, 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 if not for that, find out more about the Center Against Abuse,
Exactly.
and know that surrounding islands, Turks and Caicos, Cayman Islands, British Virgin Islands, what else did you mention?
Montserrat and
Montserrat
Anguilla.
and
And
Anguilla. You have
Anguilla
the
and Cayman, yes.
Cayman, yeah. So if you know anybody that may be experiencing this, please know that you can reach out to the Center Against Abuse, and they will get you pointed in the right direction. Or you
Yeah.
can call us, Love Life Now Foundation, 888-LLN 9876. I want to thank you guys for being part of this. Samantha says, God bless to new
Thank
beginnings. I
you.
appreciate all of you. And again, we thank you for joining us on our
Yeah.
pop-up live. Good night.
Thank you for the opportunity. Have a great night.
You too.